Hello, and thank you for joining our Savvy Women Smart Investors webinar. My name is Cami Zonin, and Erin Lindquist, my colleague, will be joining us shortly. We are two of the three financial coaches at Zonin Wealth Management. Think of this today as a short journey where you're going to learn about the key financial matters at each stage of life and how to navigate them successfully. And along the way, you're going to recognize financial challenges that are unique to women. We'll also prep you with some good questions to ask so you can get the help that you're really looking for. Not all financial plans are created equal. Before we begin, I'm just going to take you through a little roadmap of what we'll be talking about today. First, that's going to be the early life stage. This is where Erin will be jumping in. She's going to talk about paying off college debt, finding a job so you can pay off that debt, your future. Maybe you've had to come back home, live with your parents, and how do you save to get yourself the place that you really are looking for? And then there's the midlife stage. This is where we have careers, maybe we get married and have children, maybe we're taking care of ill parents or spouses, planning for retirement, and just about everything else, long-term goals and things like that fall under this midlife stage. And then there's the later life stage, and that's talking about things like healthcare and Social Security, making sure that we have a plan so that we do not outlive our money. This is a neat picture. It's actually from an excerpt from a 1950s home economics textbook. And you can see here it shows that in the good housewife, that's what this is called, was home and took care of the house and made dinner and took care of the kids so that when her husband came home, after a hard day's work, everything was in order and dinner was served. Well, lucky for us, the 1970s brought the women's movement to life, and things changed. Things have actually changed drastically for women. So then, 1950, we were only about 30% of the U.S. labor force, and only 12% of that 30% was considered the primary breadwinner. Now, this study done in 2021, in fact, this was done after 2.3 million women left the workforce at the start of or throughout the pandemic. But still, after that, 57% of the labor workforce is women, and 29% of us are the breadwinners for our families. So now we're going to talk about the early life stages. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Erin, and I will be back soon. Erin?
Hi. So I'm going to be starting off by talking about the early stage. This is going to be your 20s to 30s. Maybe you have some student debt to pay off, or you are looking for a job, but I'm going to give some tips for starting off on the right financial foot. So I'm going to start off by talking about credit, and it's very important to start establishing good credit and being able to take care of it. So if you take on too much debt, that it could be hard to rent an apartment, buy a home, get a loan, or even get a job. So what factors impact your credit score? So that would be the amount you owe on current loans, interest rates on current debt, payment history, length of credit history, and your credit mix. And it's also important to keep a healthy credit score. So things to look for in keeping a good credit score would be paying your bills on time. It's easier these days because you can set up auto payments. Keeping your credit card balance low. Open a credit only when you need it. And check your credit score once a year. It's free. You want to make sure you're using reputable websites to check it, like Credit Karma, and you can do this for free. Reducing your debt can also help improve your credit. One way to do that is to keep your finances in order is to create a budget. We consider the following 50-30-20 rule. That would be 50% of your income goes to housing, food, and other household necessities. 30% goes to traveling, morning coffee, those wants in life. And then 20% is towards your financial goals. This would be such as saving for retirement, buying a house, or any big financial goal you may have. So now let's take a deeper dive into that 20% of the financial goals. Now for that last part of the budget, that 20% for savings. This can be tough in your early earning years, but even in small amounts, sooner rather than later, and doing it regularly could have an impact on you. So this graph here will show the power of compounding. It shows a hypothetical $10,000 investment with compounded yearly returns. You'll see at the bottom here, it will show a conservative return of 3%, and in the middle, you'll see a 5% return for a moderate risk, and at the top, you'll have a growth or aggressive growth return of 6%. But the bottom line is that no matter what your risk tolerance is, by starting early and saving even just a small amount, it can really make a difference for your future. And if left alone in a long-term investment for years, it will grow, and this will make a huge impact for your life in the future and your retirement. So I know we just talked about the power of compounding. So let's take a look at that budget again that we created, that 50-30-20 rule. If we rework it to make that 20-30-50 and putting your financial goals and wants over those necessities while still thinking about the necessities, we could think about it in a way of paying ourselves first. You want to rethink and make sure that you are taking care of yourself and your financial future and making that a priority. This will be super important in your retirement years, and you really want to take care of yourself and your finances. So saving is about doing something for yourself. What about getting what you're worth from others, like an employer? So when you go to apply for your first job or you're switching jobs, you want to be sure that you understand all the benefits offered by your employer. Many companies are increasing their employer benefits options in order to recruit and retain new talent. So you want to make sure that you're educated on all the benefits that are available to you. One being a retirement plan, so you want to be sure that you know if you have one and if you can contribute to it. And along with that, if your company offers a matching percentage, you want to make sure that you're aware of what that percentage may be. And if you are contributing, you want to make sure that you're contributing at least up to that match so you can get the full benefit of it and you're not leaving money on the table. You also want to know if you have health insurance coverage or disability insurance, offers like that, maternity or adoption leave, tuition reimbursement, student loan repayment assistance. There can be a multitude of benefits offered to you, and you just want to be aware that you have them and you are taking full advantage of them. It's very important. So now I'm going to turn this back over to Cami to go through the middle stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. And who better to hear that from than somebody who is actually in that stage herself, the early life stages. It really does pay to start young, and you saw that, and you'll see it again in the next few slides as well. So now let's talk about the biggest juggling act, I guess you could say, the middle life stage. This is where we have kids, careers, like I said, maybe we're getting married, and you're merging finances. This is one area I feel strongly about making sure you know your partner's finances before you get married. This is something that is really important. You don't have to agree on everything. In fact, you don't even have to feel the same way or have the same money scripts about it. But you do need to have a compromise and a plan, communication around money. There's a little checklist here of things that can help get you started. Talk to your partner about financial goals. Consider a prenup. I know that sounds like a dirty word, but if you're coming into a marriage or you're marrying and it's maybe a second marriage, or you come into the marriage with assets or things you just don't want to feel threatened if the marriage didn't work out. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Compare your credit scores and spending habits. That's going to be really, really important when you're buying a house or a car or a boat or anything. How much are you going to spend without telling your spouse? Not that you're asking for permission, but again, it's all about compromise. One really important area that I see people get married is update your beneficiary information. Sometimes we forget to do that, and it's our parents or our siblings that are the beneficiaries. Unless that's who you truly want to be, then that's fine, but be sure to check them. Now, that's great if you're married, but what if you're single? And right now, single women are a very fast growing category of citizen according to census. And because of that, we actually have different challenges that we face. So we're going to talk about optimizing your savings potential. And we're going to go through this assumption here. We're going to assume you start contributing at age 22. And you're making $40,000 a year, and you're going to contribute 3% of that. So here we go. We see a chart here. Start out at 22, and we're saving 3% of your salary. And then each year on top of that, you increase it 1% until you get to 10% per year. So we see how that grows in value a lot more. And now we're going to add on your employer contributions. A lot of employers will match your 401k contributions or 403b contributions. So if they match 100% of the first 3% and 50% of the next 3%, that means they will match 4.5% of what you're putting in. So you want to make sure you're contributing at least that, or else you're leaving money on the table. So see how much. Now we're going to add the investment return of 6%. And this is where the growth really comes in, and you see that grows to about $1.3 million. Again, this is a hypothetical return of 6%. We know that markets go up and down, so it may not always be 6%, but this is a really, really, really good hypothetical showing you how much money you can save. But then where does all that money go? So 17% of women expect to leave or have left the workforce to care for other children, 7%, or 10% caring for aging parents or other family members or friends. Also, sometimes we don't really think about the cost of having a child, and maybe we wait till later because we have careers. Sometimes that can bring on things like infertility, and that could make the medical side of it a little tougher. Or maybe you just decide to adopt. Then there's adoption fees and things we want to consider and plan for. So here, we're going to revisit another assumption, and we're going to throw in some variables. And that is, we're going to use one scenario where we stop investing for 7 years, and that's to raise a family. And then the other is going to be only investing 3%, and you do not escalate your contribution year over year. And the last one is going to be a hypothetical investment return of only 3%. That's being very, very conservative. Maybe 2%, and you'll see here. So here we go. We're going to start with that ideal scenario where we grow it 6%, we increase it, and we have our employer match. But now let's see what happens if we stop investing for just 7 years while we raise a family. You can see that brings it down to under $1 million. Let's see what happens if we don't increase our contributions every year and we just keep it at 3%. Wow, that really, really decreases the amount we're going to have. And then let's layer on if we're too conservative. So you can see the challenges and the risks, quite honestly, without knowing what it is you really need and maybe being guided. You're not going through this alone. You can do this with a financial advisor, and your 401k professional can help you. Now, this is another slide just showing what we just talked about, and I don't say this to say, well, maybe you shouldn't take any leave ever or never go back to work. You can do all of that. You can take a break if you want. You can take a break forever, not go back, but we just want to make sure that we plan for it. Now, the other thing we don't plan for, or maybe now we're starting to, or when kids come back home to live for a little while they're trying to pay down college debt and get their lives back on track and start living in the real world. It's important that you have some boundaries around what expenses you will cover for them. It's important that you do not dip into your retirement to help them pay student loans or to help them buy a car and things like that. Again, that's a personal decision, but again, it could be detrimental to your retirement. And then, of course, there is that looming discussion of long-term care. And there's a lot of misconceptions around this. So long-term care means you either need a skilled nurse or somebody coming in to help take care of you, or you need to go into a skilled facility. You can pay for that either through retirement and other savings that you have. That's called self-insuring. Or you'll have long-term care insurance that'll help cover some of that cost. Or Medicaid, if you don't have any assets or any savings, then you need to go to Medicaid. Or you have spouse or other family members that are going to help take care of you. which I definitely do not recommend. So it says here that the average cost is about $5,000 a month. Now, in New Jersey and other areas of the country, it is actually a lot more than that, and I have seen it about $12,000 a month, depending on the level of care that you need. This also says the average stay is 3 years. Well, with science today and dementia and Alzheimer's, people are living actually a lot longer and needing care for a lot more years. So before, when we were planning for 3 years, we're actually planning for a little longer than that. This is something that a lot of misconception comes up, that if you have to go into a nursing home, and I'm not sure who they are, come and take your money, the government, the nursing home. No, they just say that the nursing home needs to be paid for your stay or for this nursing services you're receiving, and if you don't have the assets to pay for it, Medicaid will. But if you have assets or savings, they're going to want you to use that first. Now, caregiving costs, financial support for loved ones. I've had some adult children that actually pay for a long-term care policy for their parents so that they can actually retire and grow old, age into the golden years with dignity and have the support that they need from professionals and not family members. I thought this was pretty interesting. 69% of Americans have little or no long-term care planning. Also, 48 million caregivers in the U.S. are caring for an adult. 89% of them are caring for a relative, and they're probably not getting paid, taking time off of work, time away from their family, time away from their own self-care, and then they end up becoming sick. I see that quite often. So now we're going to talk about the later life stage, getting your ducks in a row. What do we do? How do we do this? So first, we're going to talk just briefly about Social Security, and this is such a big topic of discussion on a regular basis with my clients, with friends, just out there on the TV. Social Security for women, we rely on it more. MFS did a recent survey of plan participants showed that women have less access to a defined benefit plan. That's a 401k, 403b. Maybe they haven't worked, or they just haven't worked as many years. So we don't have that access that our counterparts do. And we don't realize that we could be getting more. 82% of women entitled to survivor benefits and their own retirement benefit would have received a higher monthly benefit amount if they knew they could delay taking their own benefits to age 70. What does all that mean? If your husband is taking Social Security full retirement age and you wait until age 70, your benefit would be a lot higher. From full retirement age to age 70, it's 8% per year increase in your benefit. Your husband, if he should predecease you, you will receive either his or your benefit. If you wait to 70, you'll have a higher benefit, and chances are it could be more than what his was. And that happens quite often. We don't realize that we lose one of the Social Security benefits when one passes. You can also get more from Social Security. These are just some tips. Every situation is different and personal, so it's something to definitely review with your financial advisor. If you're single in your peak earning years, consider working a little longer because that'll replace your lower earning years. I also would like for you to check out your account on SSA.gov and go in and make sure that all of the years you worked have earnings in there. If you're married, maybe the higher spouse, the spouse with the higher wages can delay taking Social Security to maximize the benefit. If you're divorced but were married for 10 years, you can collect Social Security on your ex-spouse's benefit if it will be more, half of that will be more than yours. And if you're widowed, you want to make sure you check with Social Security to see if you can start with one benefit and then yours and then switch to the survivors after full retirement age. So what we want to make sure we do is we just don't let life happen. We want to plan ahead. There's a lot of different challenges and financial needs that we have, again, that men just do not. So we can let it happen. One of our greatest strengths is to know when to get help, but sometimes we don't ask for it. Men don't ask for directions. Maybe we don't ask for help. So make sure you don't go it alone, like this woman here. Oh, that sucked, she says. Don't go it alone. There are advisors out there. There are 3 on my team. We would love to help you. And I'm going to end on this that I think is really adorable and really, really important. I think it's important that we start talking to our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, our friends' kids. Talk to these young girls, let them know how important it is to get started early, learning about how to become financially educated and financially secure. Just a little girl here being read a book by her father, and she says, skip to the part where the princess creates multiple streams of income, builds wealth, and invests it all in cash flowing assets. One smart little cookie there. Well, I hope you enjoyed our webinar today. I thank you for taking the time for viewing it. You can reach us by calling the number here on your screen, 732-333-0280, or reaching us at info@zonandwealth.com. You'll get Emily. She'd be happy to schedule a meeting. Or if you just have some questions, she'd be happy to connect you with one of our 3 advisors. Again, I hope you enjoyed this webinar and found it useful. Please feel free to pass it on to your friends. I hope to hear from you soon. Be well.